sponsor senders. If you want to do cold email deliverability correctly, you hit that link in the description. But without them, I wouldn't be able to interview awesome people like Juan. Welcome. Yeah, this is super cool. If anybody has had a chance to look at any of the content that you put online, they can see you're doing a million things. And it's really cool, the different adventures that you're looking at. So if you could just give a quick introduction to who you are and what you're working on.
Yeah, so my name is Juan Betancourt, Cuban-American from the northeast of the U.S., currently live in Miami, and I am the CEO of Humantelligence. We have an AI coach that's called Ask Aura, and it's an AI agent that basically, unlike Copilot, is personalized to every person in a company in terms of questions you can ask around collaboration, like how do I collaborate with Blake? And it'll tell me specifically an answer around your behaviors, your motivators, your work styles, your communication styles. Same if I ask a question about a team I'm leading, how do I motivate this team? Copilot can't do that. So we're the first AI that enhances every person, every leader, every team, and does not replace people, but enhances them. Probably will be the first AI that
Interesting. How long have you been working on this company?
In pounds, about 25 pounds ago. In years, it took about 8 years to get here. We did not start off as an AI company, and we did not start off focused on talent management and talent development. We really started as a recruiting platform, a recruiting tool. I had been a top executive search consultant for 15 years at the two largest firms, Heidrick and Struggles and Korn Ferry International. That's like saying, McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, right, in the recruiting world. And I wanted to kind of take what I had in my head of being such a great recruiter and package it as a software. And I found a personality test that could evaluate somebody in 10 minutes, what nobody could do in an hour. So for the first time ever, you could quickly assess lots of applicants. And as if you'd interviewed them for 7 hours, like a psychologist, in 10 minutes, you could figure out fit and the best fit for either finding the right fit for a CEO or an executive leadership team, or what we did was for the masses, you could also give it to high and low performers, and the system would instantly tell you, here are the 3 behaviors, the 2 motivators, and the 2 or 3 work energizers of all your high performers. So now just give the same test to 10,000 applicants, and it'll pull out the 20 people just like your high performers. So we really were the first company to figure out fit at a really deep level, not based on skills, because that's a commodity, but based on really the 70% predictive performance, which is behaviors, motivators, work styles. It froze for the last minute, but did you catch that?
Hey, great. Yeah. So, well, like I said, this goes out on Monday, so I'll just add a marker there and we'll edit it out. No worries. But yeah, so you had said that there was the personality test that you could screen people as if you were interviewing them for 7 hours and then pick out the high performers. And then there's a second use case that you had begun speaking about.
Well, there's using this tool for executives where you're looking for the right fit for an executive team or specifically with the CEO, or the second use case was for high volume where you give it to your high and low performers.
Gotcha. Right, the low performers. Understood.
Get your answer of what explains performance, because it's performance more predictive than skills and resume and what you've done before. In high volume roles, it's actually your behaviors, your motivators, your work styles, truly the culture fit to a role. So we could actually predictively find people who could fit culturally across those 3 things. We call it BMW, behaviors, motivators, work style, to a specific job, not this generic, oh, the culture of the company. That's all BS. All the science shows that there's no correlation between what's on a company's website and the culture of a company. And by the way, if you had the same culture of a company everywhere, that company would fail miserably, because if finance had the same culture as marketing, one of the 2 groups would fail. If supply chain and sales had the same culture, one of the 2 groups would fail. So you actually have different cultures by job and by level, and our tool could pick that up in a nuanced way for any job in a company.
Gotcha. So is this something that you came to in pieces throughout your career before launching this company, or is this something that happened all at once?
Tough question. I don't think anything happens all at once. I think it's like an amalgamation of I'm 55, right? All these different career roles I've had: Reebok, Puma, Procter and Gamble, then a big software company, Siebel Systems. That all led to me having the knowledge to visualize what a software could do, to take the best practices from big companies in recruiting, what really works, and then my executive recruiting experience at Korn Ferry and Heidrick and Struggles to actually visualize and tell a bunch of coders and software engineers how to make a product, right? So that's kind of how it took 25 years. I could have never done the initial genesis of Humantelligence, that recruiting, we called it talent fit recruiting, without my career. And then pivoting to this AI Ask Aura tool, that was out of desperation because we had failed. We did great with the talent fit tool, grew to 2.5, $3 million in 2 years. We were crushing it, had 25 employees, top start of Miami, but then COVID hit. Nobody in their right mind was paying for software for hiring for all of 2020. So we went to zero from 2.5 million in
Wow.
revenue, and I had to fire 23 of 25 people. And I was already several million of my own money in. And so I was like, okay, what do I do? And so that's when I had to pivot. And we tried things for 4 years, different products. How do we get existing employees to consume this amazing personality data and insights? And we just couldn't figure out an interface, a mechanism where you didn't need a lot of training, where people wouldn't use it one and never again, just like all psychometric and personality tests, people use them never again. So we were lost. And so I finally told my team in February of 24, hey, I just saw some company called ChatGPT go from 0 to 1 billion people with no marketing, no sales, no training. That interface where you're just asking questions, basically would ask what ChatGPT is. It's a relaunch of 20 years ago, a company called Ask Jeeves. When Google came out, people were like, oh my God, awesome tool. But wait a second, there's like 100 pages. I can't even get past page 2. Isn't there a way of just like summarizing it and giving me my answer? So I was in San Francisco at the time. A company came out called Ask Jeeves, Jeeves, where all you did was write your question and it would go through all the content and give an answer. But generative AI wasn't there yet, so it never really delivered great answers. ChatGPT is a successful version of whoever, I don't even know who was the idea behind Ask Jeeves, but whoever thought of Ask Jeeves 25 years ago, that's what ChatGPT is today. And so then I told my team, if you guys can get our platform in a question and answer interface like ChatGPT, where an agent like Ask Jeeves, we call it Ask Aura, if she can just answer any question and go through everyone's psychology like a coach would, right? A coach does that for 30,000 a year. We do it for $1 per person per month for 100% of employees, not for $30,000 for 5 employees.
So can we go through? You said that there were approximately 4 years where you were trying different ideas, different business models. So how do you navigate 4 years of doing something that ended up not sticking? Let's say from the perspective of not only running the business but also mentally, emotionally. Like not just moving on to the next chapter.
Yeah, and going back to making millions as a headhunter. My wife.
Well, right, and not doing that.
And we had 2 kids in the process of those 4 years. So, we now had a 1 and a 3-year-old during that time who today are 4 and 6. You read about entrepreneurs and startups and like how they all go through their challenges and they all have to pivot. And pivot is not a positive thing. If anybody tells you, yeah, I'm going to figure out what we can pivot next, that's not, no, that means you're not strategic. Pivots are not what you're looking to do. Pivots come out of necessity because the market changed or you failed or it's not working. Like you have to change your marketing, your sales materials, your PowerPoint deck, your investor decks. You have to change your support for any existing customers and drag them to the new product. I mean, I could list 20 reasons why pivots suck, and you only do it if it's a last resort. Okay. So we went from that recruiting tool and we said, okay, let's talk to our customers. We have this great personality test. Like that alone is better than anything in the market, but we need to deliver something different than what's been around for 50 years, which is a workshop with a personality test and someone comes in and gives you an offsite workshop. That model's broken. Nobody thinks there's value in that. People use it once and never again. So we had to come up with a product that would be used more than once. And the problem was we first started with a culture management tool where you would everybody could search anybody in the company and find any team or combination. It would give you insights. And sure, 80% usage, then went to 60, then 40, then 20 over the course of a year, because who wants to log in somewhere else? Then I saw Grammarly after 18 months come out, right? This is like probably by 2022. And Grammarly all of a sudden was worth $10 billion. And everybody's like, what the hell? How that company, all they're doing is taking 400 years of content, dictionary, thesaurus, and grammar, crap that's the most boring in the world. And all they did was put it in workflow. So I saw that. I told my team, let's do Grammarly, but psychometrics. so that in your workflow, you can get insights. We thought we were brilliant. We got the next, because if they're worth 10 billion, what we're doing is worth a hell lot more than grammar. This is understanding your colleagues, being a better leader, understanding team dynamics, communicating better. So we built the product into Slack, into Outlook, into email. So now imagine you write an email, push our button, and it rewrites the email for you to your audience member. Imagine you're in a Zoom call and you push our button in the Zoom call. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. And it tells you the dynamics of the meeting. It says, Blake, you're deliberate. The other 5 people you're presenting to, they're all decisive. Do this, this, and this to really make an impact. Or Blake, who are you trying to influence in this meeting? Okay, Mary. Oh, wow. You, Blake, and Mary only 12% similar. Here are the differences. Here's what you need to do. And same thing with a calendar in Outlook. You click on the calendar, it pops up. It gives you the dynamics of the meeting. So we thought we had a home run. We called it smarter collaboration, right? And nobody could do it. We were the first company. Now, there we failed because how to sell a product like that actually ended up being too complicated for a startup, right? So one, smarter collaboration, your audience might laugh when they hear this, but usually you want to sell a product that it's solving a problem that they have in their title. So if it's a supply chain leader you're selling to, you probably want a supply chain optimization software. If it's a talent acquisition leader, you probably want a recruiting software. We were selling smarter collaboration. You would think every company wants smarter collaboration, better written emails, better communication, but there's no CEO, there's no chief collaboration officer. Who are we selling to? We got a lot of meetings, a lot of wows, but it wasn't the mandate of anybody to solve the problem of collaboration. So there was no buyer, no budget, and we still closed $300,000. So it was a pretty kick-ass product because people would see it like, that's amazing, right? And then they'd say, well, we started to also put AI into it so it could rewrite the email. And then they would say, oh, well, we can't trial it because now IT's got to get involved. Now there's what they call a security review, delays the sale by 6 months. And then we got past security review at United Healthcare, at Accenture. I mean, 6 months later, it took forever. And then we're like, okay, now please trial it now that IT's agreed. And then they're like, well, gosh, Juan, this is really a tool for people who don't know each other. Us in HR that you're selling to, we all know each other. Why would we rewrite an email before we write it to each other? Why would we be on a call and see the dynamics of the meeting? There's no way of trialing it. We still closed $300,000. And so then we would implement it, and then you would need training, because if you've ever gone into Outlook or Zoom, there's buttons. How does someone know to even click that button or what's there? And even though training is as easy as ChatGPT, like what does it take, 10 minutes to train someone on ChatGPT? Unless you can figure out how to get 5,000 people to see a training module. So for all those reasons, oh, and by the way, the HR buyer was not the user. At the end of the day, an HR executive doesn't really need to change their behaviors or communication styles for anybody, because everyone needs HR. HR doesn't need anybody.
Okay.
So they weren't really the users of the product. So that's when we pivoted to Ask Aura and this AI. When I saw ChatGPT come out, I realized, wow, that's the interface. That's fun. No training needed. Everyone's a user, including HR. Every HR leader is a user, and it solved all the problems that we didn't solve before. To your question of psychology, I'm just when I believe in something, I'll stick to it. And my North Star tells me not to give up until, because I'm also not stubborn, there's no hope, right? So right now, we think we figured it out. We have a great product. We still haven't hit it on, closing a lot of deals, but I'm going to give it 12 to 18 months. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll close it down, even though I'll be closing what I believe is potentially a $5 billion company.
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting to me with the remind me the name, the Grammarly pivot, smart collaborative.
Our product, AI for smarter collaboration, that's kind of our go-to-market launch that was akin or similar to the Grammarly product.
Got it. And so when you had made that pivot, how much building needed to happen on the dev side?
Each of these pivots is a complete rebuild of the product. So you don't have revenue for those months. You're redoing the marketing, the website. It's horrible.
Yeah. And so that's why it's such a fascinating decision to make, because of, like you're saying, all the repercussions of that decision. And so how did you balance or I get, from your perspective of someone that has navigated it successfully, even if you ended up making another pivot, I would say the fact that you made it to a next pivot is a success in my mind. So how did you balance building versus selling? Like you said, you had no revenue for a number of months and then you went and sold it, or you tried to sell while it was still being built. I think it's someone listening. Someone listening said, called about Aura.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Hey, look at
We have more
that.
time. We have more time. Yeah, to your question around like how did I keep focus and do it, and the balance between building versus selling, like I don't know, I think it's just a mentality. I believe in myself. Like I used to run marathons. I was one of the fastest runners in the country, one of the best basketball players in the country, and I played soccer for the U.S. national team. So I was literally anything I ever did, I had the ability to go do it for 4 hours a day, where most people would stop after two. Like I just have that. I was had my graduating, valedictorian in my high school class. I went to Harvard. Like I've always believed anything's possible if you listen to the market, know your strengths, your weaknesses, and commit to it. I just think I just have this like maybe unrealistic and idealistic view, but it has always played out well for me on average.
So when you made that decision, was it more so calculated as far as like, hey, we're taking 3 months to completely reorient, and we need to have this done in 3 months period, and then we're going to start selling? Or did you generate marketing and these things, and then start selling while it was being built?
I never sold before it was a product that we could demo and that it worked.
Understood.
I'm not one who can demo something and say, "Oh yeah, buy," and then like try to build it while they've already bought it. So yeah, I focus on helping getting the product built, and also it's it wasn't random pivots and direction product wise that was from internal. I don't believe that companies know the answer. No company, no product team knows the answer. The market and or competition will always have the answer before a company or their employees. And so I've just always followed the Procter and Gamble motto that a CEO and a product team should always assume they do not know the answer, and that the more market people they talk to, the more customers, clients, market, the more accurate their product will land in terms of the need. And so I always have that belief of being a Procter and Gamble disciple, knowing that my team and me are never going to come up with the answer. That the more you can iterate with the customers and with potential prospects and just getting feedback, that's going to lead to the best answer, both product and marketing message.
So is that something you guys are implementing in? Well, let's frame it within with this. How long would you say it's been since you launched?
We launched that in October with a functioning product where I started to call clients, prospects.
Whoa, congrats! So as far as when you decided to launch, how did you go about? What was your plan to go to market for that?
Redo the website, redo a one pager, redo an investor deck, redo the PowerPoint pitch deck, redo our trial process, right? When people do trials, it's a different trial of this product than others. So redoing inside the product, kind of the journey, the user interface. So for trials, and then figuring out the new buyer and the new messaging and rewriting all the messages and going after different people, because this was now a new buyer. This was now talent management and learning and development. We never sold specifically to them, um, right? Because those people do have budgets for assessments and they never cared about collaboration. So we avoided them before, and now we're actually going right at them. Before we were avoiding competition, now we're going right at competition. And actually, we're embracing competition because we spent $2 million to buy our assessment tool, because it's hard nobody can develop an assessment tool. It takes 10 years. So we had to buy one that was 40 years validated scientifically. Imagine you spend $2 million on a tool. The last thing you want to do is say, we'll build a platform for everyone to use, but you can put in anybody's assessment into it. But what we learned from the market and going to the market with this new platform was, hey, Juan, we'll buy your tool if you can do it with Hogan. We don't care about your assessment.
Wow.
80% of our employees are on Hogan. Can you do that? Next meeting. Hey, 70% of our employees are on disk. Can you do that? You hear that question enough and you
Oh,
realize,
man.
you know what? We got to accept other companies' tools, right? We'll provide the platform and you can upload anybody's assessment and ours for those that don't have it. Because most companies have 10% of employees doing assessments, the high end, and those tools, they exist. They don't get used often, but they're there. They measure what they say they do. So the rest of the 80% will be our tool. And we think long term, when you're agnostic to the actual assessment, the data capture, you actually will then become by default the best tool in the world because everybody can use everything through your
Definitely.
platform. So
Sure.
short-term pain and not outright victory, more of a co-opetition model in our product. But we think long-term that's the way to go, as painful as it bleeping was.
Well, as far as getting in front of those people and connecting with those people that you're iterating with and that you're learning from, just to get into the weeds a little bit, because this is a lot of the reason I started this, because I'm very interested in tactically how people go to market and sales and marketing, and like you're saying, these one pagers, like user experiences, all of these things. Are you currently doing any type of outward sales? Are you using referral model, partnership model? Yeah,
Yeah,
how are
so
you?
great question. One of the things I learned was that, if you're selling a product based on price, where the market's already knows that that product exists. I have a car and it's cheaper, better gas mileage. I have a dishwashing liquid that can do 5 loads versus one, right? Just but everybody knows what a dishwashing liquid is. Everybody knows what a car is. Our product, nobody's ever looked at an AI coach that takes data and gives you answers like this. So nobody's looking for it. So you can't do SEO, SEM. So trying to find what people are searching for and be there, when yeah, our output is better engagement, but there's engagement surveys. So we could get 100 meetings a week with people looking for a tool that makes better engagement. But when we show it to those people, they're going to say, wow, that's the best tool I've ever seen for engagement. But I'm supposed to be looking for an engagement survey. That's what my boss told me to go find. So if they're not looking for it, you're not on their line item budget. So SEO, SEM doesn't help. So at this stage, we realized we got to go back to the drawing board, even though we're not really a startup. It's been 8 years. We got to just go to people who will trust us. So warm intros, because when someone sees it, they will move forward. It is that transformational product, but nobody's going to set up a meeting with a company they've never heard of, Humantelligence, a person who's Hispanic, right? If I ask you to think of one Hispanic person that you've respected in your life that wasn't a rapper or a musician, you can't come up with one. There's not one in the whole country. I have 2 kids that I can't even point to. Hey, we're 20% of the population is Hispanics. Who's a role model? There isn't one, right? And so people don't respond to a guy named Juan. I've done tests where I write by Juan Betancourt and John Betancourt. John Betancourt gets about 20% response rates. Juan Betancourt gets about 1% response rates. Same email to hundreds of people. So, but I'm too proud to change my name. I just did that to test it out in
Good.
50 different people. So with a Hispanic first name and a company nobody knows, it's only through referrals and warm intros. So I've been reaching out on LinkedIn to either alumni from Harvard or Wharton, because they're going to be more in tune to opening it, or asking my friends board and other people if they can make introductions to anybody in anywhere in the company, even if it's not the ultimate buyer. Right now, we're doing a campaign to alumni from Harvard and Wharton, any position, any level, at any company in the U.S. with more than 5,000 employees. So we're talking there's going to be 20,000, and every week it just sends out 50, and we're getting about 10 meetings a week with people willing to say in 15 minutes to see it before they forward me to their HR team. And we just started last week. We've got 10 already in 1 week. And like, that's going to be, it's going to be golden, because the minute someone in HR does see it, they can't not buy it, or not, at least not trial it.
Well, it's gonna keep going. It's gonna keep going. We got this. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for speaking on the specifics. There's two more things that I am curious about. Now, something that you just brought up, and then also the Miami scene. But I am curious if you could elaborate on your experience in this space. Being as successful as you have been. I mean, 8 years. Still having a company is in a lot of ways successful. But how the John versus Juan is an interesting example. How has that played in your own experience being Hispanic and growing this company?
I didn't name my kids Hispanic names, for one.
Wow.
It's unfortunate that DEI came and went, and it was all about other demographic groups and not about Hispanics. And because Hispanics actually are twice as big as the other major demographic group that everybody thought DEI was trying to help. Yet that other group has a lot more accomplishments and a lot more traction in terms of business leaders, CEOs, tech people, venture capital. I went and testified at Congress about how there's, like 120 black VC firms, there's like 3 Hispanic. There's like 200 black private equity firms, there's like 3 Hispanic. Like, I worked in Silicon Valley. I used to get faxes in 1999 with the name HUAN or HWAN or WON. Because when I was doing business development, when I was on the phone and like, oh, what's your name? Give me your fax. I'll fax it to you. Yeah, Juan Betancourt. No one could ever imagine that the person on the other line of a tech company was Hispanic. They just thought Asian. So Juan, they thought was HWAN or HUAN or WN. And then many people, when they were emailing me, they'd call me back. Hey, your email's not working. It's bouncing. And they were spelling it with Asian names. I used to keep a folder of like 100 emails where people were like, hey, how do you spell
Wow.
your name? It's not going through. So, you know, Hispanics typically are not the most educated and the most successful in the country. And for that reason, if somebody has 500 inbound emails or 500 in-mails, are they going to go after the Hispanic name that their probability says there's nothing that's going to come from it? Probably not. When I get an email from Papua New Guinea and I'm busy, I probably don't open that email from Papua New Guinea. I'm not racist. Okay. Same if I get an email from Nepal or an email from some small island off the coast of New Zealand. Like, usually the next big client is not from there. I think it's not racism, it's just subconscious bias. There's a reason why on dating apps, they still have Asian, Hispanic, no, I'm sorry, Asian, Black, and for Hispanic, for white, it's not white, it's white, comma, non-Hispanic. So go on any dating app, people don't want to date white Hispanics. They want to date white non-Hispanics. That's today. It's just common discrimination that's just out there that most people don't think about because Hispanics don't have a voice in this country, right? There's 50,000 Hispanic women who are trafficked every year, right? Trayvon Martin dies and it's the end of the world. 50,000 Hispanic women are trafficked into slavery in the United States and nobody gives a damn. Like, it's at a level that's just, I mean, unless you're Hispanic, there's a reason why Hispanics voted for Trump. No surprise when you see the reality of what groups are getting favored and what groups are getting ignored, right?
So yeah, and so related to your experience with that, and thank you for elaborating on that. I'm curious, like, being based in Miami, how the
Well,
tech
that's
scene is
why I moved to
evolving.
Miami. Miami's the only city in the country where I'm not going to be judged by my name. People are going to judge me by who I am and what I do, not by my first name.
So then how, because the question was around just generally speaking how Miami scene has evolved, but you can also speak to your experience being Hispanic in that scene, but also generally just how it's evolved relative to other tech hubs in the US.
The Miami tech scene's blown up. I mean, when I moved here 15 years ago, it was not top 20 in technology. Today, it's the fifth biggest city in technology and venture capital raise and tech companies, startups. It's bigger than Austin. It's bigger than DC. So we're talking, far from San Francisco, far from New York, far from Boston, but then it's right up there with whoever the number four is. But we're right there at fifth, ahead of DC and Austin every year for the last 3 years. It's ironic, even though I feel great in Miami because nobody judges me because of my name. Miami went from being 80% Hispanic or Latin to only 30% in the last 15 years. But still, the people who move here are open-minded. Most people don't want to move to a city that's so Hispanic unless they see them as equals, or at least aren't, biased against them. So even though Miami's become much less Latin, it's still much more open-minded, and the people who move here are not Latin are very open-minded and probably neutral in how they think about people and just treat people as individuals and not as part of some group. But I left the US at 22 because of this problem. So I left for 20 years because I couldn't stand, making out with a girl in high school, or not in high school, in college, and having her, after she learns my name afterwards, run away and not call me back. Or, you tell someone your name and they're like shocked by your name because they didn't think you were that race. So you do that to an 18 to 22-year-old for 4 years, they're not going to want to live in the U.S. So I left for 20 years and came back
Where'd you
at
go?
42. 4 years Brazil, 4 years Puerto Rico, 5 years France, 3 years Germany, 2 years Abu Dhabi, Dubai, a year Mexico, a year Italy, 7 months in China.
Wow. I mean, I knew we should have covered your corporate career before the start of it. That sounds insane.
Oh,
We've
it was
been all
awesome.
around the world like that.
I was accepted everywhere I went socially, unlike I was in the US. But professionally, if you go to any country in the world, you will never see a foreigner, no matter how I speak 5 languages like English, you will never see a foreigner running a company and changing the world and being an influencer in any other country. You have to be from that country.
Hmm.
And so I
Interesting.
realized if I want to change the world, as much as it's going to be painful to go back to the US socially and, ethnically, if I'm really good at something, the world can't hold me back in the US and I can achieve great things. And that's why I can move back.
Wow, man, there's a lot more to cover there, and I'm thankful for you to for sharing all of that. But we're coming up on time. There's two questions I love to ask everybody, so we're just gonna have to book our next episode just before you get back off. But the two questions are this. The first one is, we just spoke about a bunch of challenges that you're overcoming. Is in your business right now, what is the largest challenge, and how can it be framed as an opportunity?
Getting in front of heads of talent management, talent development, and learning development. Just getting an at bat is really tough. I feel like we have the cure for cancer, but nobody knows, right? So if you don't have marketing money and you don't have a sales organization, how do you get an at bat with a buyer who typically is not on social media, not on LinkedIn, doesn't respond to emails? Because right, the VC venture capital always says that the hardest buyer to find and get to is HR, and there's 17,000 HR tech companies trying to get to this buyer who doesn't know technology and doesn't want to know technology.
Interesting. Is there any way that
because
yeah,
I have a network and I'm persistent and I'm going to find the way of getting to them. I mean, so that the opportunity is to flex my creative problem solving.
awesome. Well, similar to, not to super unrelated to that question, the last one that I have for you is that it could be small and it's something that could be large and overarching in your own life. But I'm curious what inspires you.
Two things inspire me. One, God for giving me the chance to live this life and breathe every day. I'm very appreciative and grateful for every breath I take. I know that not everybody has the same opportunities. They're born with mental illness, physical issues, energetic issues. I feel very blessed that everything, knock on wood, is good for me at my age, and I'm incentivized and motivated by God, who gave me that platform, that opportunity. And then my parents, because they gave me a blueprint and a roadmap of working hard, of anything's possible, of treating people with kindness. And I see a lot of other people who aren't that way, and I'm pretty sure it's because they didn't have that at home.
Awesome. Well, shout out, gratitude, appreciation, not only to them, but appreciate you for spending as much time as you had today. You're in the middle of a lot of things. You're very creatively going about that barrier. So I appreciate the honesty, transparency. I know that there's a lot of people that will be grateful to hear your perspective and resonates. So thank you so much, Juan. If someone is interested in keeping updated with how you're doing or get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn, they can find me with my full name, which is Juan Luis, Luis, Betancourt, or just at my email for Humantelligence, which is Juan@humantelligence.com. We've cut out the IN between the two words.
Boom. That's right. You hear that? He just gave his email, everybody. Blow up his inbox. This is a good guy to know. Well, thank you, Juan. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Blake.
You got it. Have a good day.